had every block in this neighborhood organized with block captains, and they could get on the phone and contact every household in this neighborhood in very short order. And so that's the kind of unity that made things happen. In fact, the grant that they talked about was one of the first 4 grants in the country for that kind of community development. So we're going to start by bringing forward Mrs. Espinola Jackson, who's going to give us a little bit more texture about that period. And we'll briefly talk to her. And then, so she could come around this way, and I'll ask her a few questions about, in fact, that famous trip to HUD and what happened, and also some of the things that she did for the welfare rights organization in the 1960s. So the most important point, I was riding in the car with Randall Robinson over to Oakland the other night, and he said something that just really stuck with me. He said, a people who don't control their own history cannot prosper.
All right, right.
Okay, let me repeat that. He said, a people who do not control their own history cannot prosper. So there are various efforts to write the history of Bayview because, you know, after years and decades of being neglected and ignored, Bayview is now ground central for the development of San Francisco. And so how the history of Bayview is told is going to make a big difference on what the future looks like. And there's a concept that we talk about in pedagogy called changing the timeline of history. So, you know, Linda called me about a document that was written by the planning department where they completely left out the black experience in Bayview. And this was a official preservation document, okay? So events like this are very important because what we found is that African American history is usually in people's attics, in people's family Bibles, in people's memories. And unless we go to the trouble of doing the oral histories and having events like this where we bring out pictures and that sort of thing, you know, they'll have a new timeline of history and say, you know what? Bayview started 2012. And so we're going to start the history of Bayview in 2012. And nothing happened before 2012 what we're going to mention. Okay? And if you think I'm joking, I'll just tell you the story of the California flag and the California seal. Minerva, who was the goddess who was born full grown, is on the California seal. So when we celebrate California as starting in 1849, when the gold rush happened. So, of course, California's been California since 1510. So 3/4 of the history of California has been erased. Okay? So it's important that we bring forward our elders and those who have paved the way for our current success. So I'm going to ask Ms. Jackson.
That's all right.
A couple questions.
Okay. I would like, before he asks me the question,
See, I knew this was going to happen.
I would also like to state that most of you are not aware because it's not in the history book. And when he said that Bayview HuntersPoint was left out, we were not only left out there, but we had the department, what do you call them, the lawyers, city attorneys, to leave out the fact that we have the Southeast Facility Commission in this community. Bayview Hunters Point was the first community and still the only community to have a commission. The first commission was Mountain Cities. And the second commission is the Southeast Facility Commission, but PUC have came aboard and they want to say that that commission is an advisory. I'm saying, oh no, it's not, because I'm fighting that and I will continue to fight, because I refuse to have anyone to come in later on not knowing what we have gone through in this community, because nothing have ever been given to us. We have had to fight for everything that we have received in this community. In fact, we were calling ourselves HuntersPoint USA. I'm finished.
So, tell us about the incident when the delegation from Bayview Hunters Point went to HUD.
But what occurred is that they were saying that there was no funds was going to be allocated to Hunters Point. But Mrs. Westbrook and others, I was afraid to fly an airplane. I said if God had wanted me to fly, he would give me wings. So I wasn't flying then. But Mrs. Westbrook went and she fell out. She fainted, like, you know how we know how to act, right? And she made sure that $30 million came into Bayview Hunters Point for these turnaround houses that we were living in, the temporary housing. What most people are not aware of is that my mom came here to San Francisco in 1943. I was 10 years of age. And all of the temporary housing was for Negroes to live in. We could not live in public housing like Petroria Hill, Sunnydale, the other nice projects. The only projects for blacks in San Francisco in 1943 was West Side Court, and it's still standing. Now the others was called like Petroria Hill. The Petroria Hill Annex was built as temporary, and they're getting ready to tear that down. But we used to have temporary housing right there at Army and 3rd Street, and it was called Annex. Any buildings in this area, when you hear the word Annex, that meant it was for colored folks, because we were not allowed to live next door to white folks in public housing until the integration law was passed in 1954. That's when we was able to move next door to white folks. White folks lived next door to us. I integrated 1135 Oakdale in 1954 because my next door neighbor was white, so I was the first one to integrate. I was very good, but not, you know, being a child, you don't know about racism. And your family don't teach you racism. My mom was not an educated woman. She came from the cotton field. All of my people, that's where we came from. So the fact that I was in special ed, they put me in special ed, and I thought I was somebody special until I was in the 10th grade and went to... I'm telling you just like it is. Until I went to Houston, Texas, my aunt had passed, and because I hadn't had English or algebra, they said, we got to put you back to the 9th grade because you have to have English and algebra to go to college. Well, I wanted to be the first in my family to go to college. I said, all right. So I was only there for one semester. My mom came and got me, and we came back to San Francisco, and I was going to a school at that time. It was called Girls High. You all may know it as Benjamin Franklin. But the last graduating class was in 1952 for Girls High. So when I came back, I told the principal, I said, I want to continue taking English and algebra. She said, oh, you ain't gonna need that. You won't need that. I said, but I want that. She said, oh no, you're going back to Miss Kelly. Now Miss Kelly, I was in her classroom for every subject except lunch and gym. I saw that woman all day long. And you know, being a child, you don't say no to adults, right? But I started my advocacy when I was 15 years old. When she said I was going back to Miss Kelly, I said, oh no, I'm not. She said, well, you have to go to school until you're 16 years old. I said, well, I'm not going back to Miss Kelly. So they said, well, you have to go to continuation. I said, fine and good. So you have to go to school until you're 16. Well, I'm counting the months. That was in September. I said, 5 months. I'm out of here. So you go half a day. So I took cooking for the first subject so I could eat it that morning. And then I took typing. But as soon as I made 16, I was out of there. So, and I tell people, I did not know that I was not getting an education. But learning later on, and I made sure it didn't happen to my children, I tell people, don't let your children be in no special ed because that means no education for your children. Because I'm an example of that. Now, I didn't go to college, but I did pass the SAT test. But I self-learned myself. And Miss Westbrook is the one that groomed me to let me know about them ACC, DBCs and stuff. I said, very good. So you stand up what you believe in and don't bare your head. Look them straight in the eye and tell them what you think.
Now, could you tell us about